one of her first comments to me is, "Do you know what I think of architects? No, I think they're all used car salesmen." Like, oh, really? Well, I'm going to find one that's going to change your mind on that. So the long story short is we helped her find an architect, do a master plan on that site. We helped her find a construction manager to help budget it. So she's got the whole master plan, but she was still struggling with funding. It's like, how do we build this? We need more space so we can have more kids, so we can raise our revenue. But it's this chicken and egg thing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Building Scale, specifically the Building Connection series, where I get to talk to people about all kinds of fascinating things that connect to the built world and people that I meet in all different kinds of ways. And today I spoke with Steve Kuhn, who has a history of building unbelievable things. Steve is the founder and executive director of ShareBuilt and is a founding partner of Savan Multi-Site Solutions. His career in construction management, he got a degree out of Cincinnati, and he went on to build schools, hospitals, retail, you name it, big national brand projects. But actually, we're not going to talk about those very huge brand projects. We're going to talk about small, mid-sized nonprofits and what happens when they walk into a scenario where they have a capital project that they need built, but they don't have any concept of even the basic terminology. We can think of like contracts or payment terms, insurance, safety, all the stuff that is required to build a new beautiful space. They have great intentions, the boards of these organizations. However, they just don't know what you don't know. They know the mission that they're on and the impact they want to have, but the construction is lacking in regards to sophistication, which is where Steve fills the gap. He saw this and actually talks about how he actually went to try to find a company or find a organization that was already doing this, and he just couldn't find one, and then said, okay, well, I need to just do this myself then, which is really, really cool and fun. It was really great talking to Steve. I actually got connected to him via LinkedIn because that's a little bit of the world I live in and connecting through LinkedIn with lots of people. But he reached out to me, had this awesome story, and I couldn't help but share because I'm one that wants to help small, mid-sized organizations. It's just a fact. I was born to help, and it feels like Steve is doing just awesome work. So really, really cool. Hope you enjoy this blend of construction as well as nonprofit sector. And I'm sure if you're listening to this and you're a GC or an architect or anybody that's in the build space and you're dealing with a RFP from a nonprofit or something, and you might be like, this doesn't make a ton of sense, or this needs some work, perhaps Steve's a good resource to reach out to. So anyways, I had a really good time, and I hope you do as well.
So what motivated the whole idea for ShareBuilt? Like, is there just a space in the nonprofit sector with construction that you saw that was like, there's a giant hole here, we need to fix this?
There is a giant hole, but honestly, I naively thought there was already somebody doing this, and my job was to find them. So I spent 2 months in 2022 searching far and wide, nationwide, to find out who was doing this because I wanted to be their Tennessee guy. Justin, I could not believe there was nobody doing this, and I'm like, this is crazy because all these 40 years in this business on the construction side. And I would be hard pressed to name an architect, engineer, or construction firm that doesn't do some nonprofit work. And then being a leader of my church for many years, being on other nonprofits, boards, it's like, well, I know how much pain they're going through trying to figure out how to plan and build a building. There's got to be somebody connecting these dots and having one side, helping one side find the other. And I could not believe there was nobody doing it. And I remember uttering these words. I remember, let's see, I started a company in the past. How hard could a nonprofit, possibly be? And well, I found out. I mean, and it's challenging, but in a different way. But honestly, the most rewarding. Almost 4 years now of my career.
That's awesome. So you're in construction prior, you see this hole, you literally were just searching for the answer that should have maybe already been there, but wasn't. And then you said, okay, well, I'm going to start my own nonprofit that does this. What does that look like compared to business? Like when you think about a nonprofit compared to a traditional for-profit business, where are those differences that you've seen?
That's a good question. So I was a co-founder of Seven Multi-Site Solutions. You can look them up, seven.com, sevan.com. And I was having a conversation with our CEO one day. This was back in late 21, probably. And I said, Jim, I'm kind of thinking about what's my next step in career, and not saying it's the last step, but I really had a heart for doing something with nonprofits. And he's, with Jim Fashion, it's like, hey, go for it, man. We'll figure it out. So I gradually, exited out of that business, a little bit more every year. I'm still on the board there as an advisor, and I'm still under Seven Charitable Foundation board. So I was there from the very beginning, forming a company that's now a nationwide firm, employing 450 people and serving, McDonald's, Walgreens, Starbucks, Walmart, those kind of clients. So I saw so much and learned a lot from Jim and the rest of our leadership team on how to build a business and a company. But I had never done a nonprofit. I mean, I'd, been in leadership on nonprofits, but I'd never built one. But it's really different. The biggest difference, and you always hear this from the nonprofit leaders, is, it's just like somebody that goes into business and they want to start doing architecture for, let's say, and they have this delusion that they're actually going to be doing architecture. No, you're going to be running a business. You're going to hire other people to do the architecture, So it's kind of like that with the nonprofits. Like you go in to do these things, but there's all this behind the scenes compliance and regulation stuff and the banking and the accounting, and it's a whole new language with most people don't realize nonprofits file tax returns. Technically, it's called a 990 every year, and it documents what your revenues are and where they went, and all that kind of stuff. And you have to meet a public charity test so that come 4 or 5 years in, that a certain percentage of your funding is actually coming from the general public and not just, Steve writing checks to himself and Steve's friends writing checks, all that kind of stuff, So again, there's things you don't realize, but also like compliance. Now this is interesting because with Seven Multi-Site, we're a national firm serving those kind of clients nationwide. As a business, we had to deal with, licensure and regulations in multiple states. Well, really, as a ShareBuilt nonprofit that we're really seeking to serve anybody anywhere in the country, although we're starting in Middle Tennessee and branched out from there, you have to register in different states that you are raising funds in. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me?
Okay.
And predictably, every state's got a different flaming hoop to jump through. And
you don't say. It's different in different states? That's
Can't we
weird.
just get together and do this like one way? No, of course not. That'd be too easy. So every state's got their own flaming hoop to jump through. And then, of course, entire businesses get set up just around helping nonprofits stay compliant with all that stuff. So you really quickly realize the best use of my time is not doing all this stuff. I should hire somebody to do that. But then you have to get insurance. So the other challenge we ran into is, and my insurance guy is a good friend from church, and even he looked at it and he's like, let's see, you're not an architect and you're not a contractor. But you are a nonprofit, but how do we insure this? Are you making design decisions or not? You need, insurance. So there's all this stuff they carved out and figured out on the spot for us. We're kind of a unicorn. We're a unique nonprofit serving nonprofits. So it's really a kind of a unique space. But I'd say the biggest issue is just the whole fundraising thing. And from us, it's really coming from a number of different directions. It's not just individual people hopefully supporting us, and although that's part of it.
No, that's interesting. So then for the listeners, what is the actual result that you're trying to achieve in this whole in the nonprofit?
Well, it's interesting. I've found that I've refined how I explain it over the years, and I'm going to start with the thing that seems to resonate the most with everybody is think about ShareBuilt as being a dating service for nonprofits. It's like, what the heck does that mean? Well, you got to
swipe right. There you are.
Yeah. Hey, what do I do? And who do I go to do it? So nonprofit leader, picture yourself as a typical nonprofit leader. You're already over your eyeballs and stuff to do. And then the board says, hey, let's plan to build a building in your spare time. Most nonprofit leaders have never done that. Even if they have, now they know what they don't have time for and that they need help doing it. So our job is to come in and help that nonprofit organization, number one, tell the story of their mission. Why do they exist? What's their purpose? Number two is, why is the building that they want to either build or expand or renovate or whatever, why is that instrumental in the accomplishment of their mission? And how do both of those help the community that they're in? But most of them don't know how to tell that story, and they don't know who to tell it to make the project happen. Like, I need to tell them what I need, but I need to also find, who's the engineer, who's the architect, who's the construction manager, who are all the trade contractors. So our job is to help them. It's really kind of it's an advisory consulting / counseling service up front, and we're matchmaking. We're trying to bring the right AEC partners to the table architect, engineer, contractor, as early as possible to the table so that they can be part of the project. Now, an interesting distinction, and one that I have to battle all the time, is everybody thinks, oh, our job is to go put a bunch of trade contractors in headlocks and extract free stuff from them. That's not the case. That's not what we're doing. We're trying to really help that nonprofit tell their story to the business community and get the right people and organizations in the business community to say, hey, I want to be part of that. What does that mean? Well, it could mean that they want to give something away, but that's up to them. It's between them and the Lord and them and the business. But that's not my place. But it's really, an example I give often is if we just finish building, let's say, a school for disabled kids, man, the last thing I want to find out is the guy down the street that owns a plumbing company that has 2 disabled kids never even knew about the project and didn't have a chance to participate. We want to raise the profile of these projects and the great stuff that they do to the whole business community so that nobody is kind of on the sideline if they want to be involved. And, you want that guy to be one of 4 or 5 plumbers that did it. And, something good's going to happen if all those people bidding it really care about the mission, But that's the difference. And it's also educating the nonprofits on project delivery methods, which is one of my personal passions. A lot of nonprofits erroneously think that, gosh, I mean, to be responsible, I have to hard bid this to 3 GCs, right? And that is not the case at all. And actually, that's going to be detrimental to what you're trying to do, which is engage stakeholders you already have in the, in your, maybe your church family or school family or, board or whatever. I mean, you want a transparent process. You want to be able to say, hey, yeah, I want that person as the superintendent, or I want that person as the project manager. And, you don't have visibility to any of that stuff or influence if it's just a hard bid situation. So really educating the nonprofits on the different delivery methods, why one might be better than another, and then helping them, tell that story early and often so that months down the road, the right firms and organizations know about the project and will be carving out a spot on their calendar come bid day.
That's very fascinating. So a big believer, alternative delivery method. I feel like I'm always on my soapbox when I talk about the low bid and then change order to death problem that
That's
exists
guaranteed minimum
across.
price, by the way.
So I it's really interesting that that's a piece of this process of like, how do you get these nonprofits to understand that like, you don't want to just go and look for something cheap. Like that's not like that weight methodology isn't going to play well for you, especially when you have trying to find people that actually care about what they're trying to build, right? So like if you can find that plumber with, in that scenario, they're going to be so much more energized because it's more passionate for them. It's more of a purpose driven. And that is how you ignite all kinds of different things, right? Like not just the fact that like that plumbing company, operates and wants to do this project and really, really wants to help the organization, but it wants to help the organization, not just with the plumbing, but with all other things in the community, which they may have access to. But if they didn't know about it, they would never have the opportunity to do that. So that's super fascinating. I love that.
Yeah, and you've made me remember something I say often, which is if you walk onto any nonprofit construction project and pull 3 tradespeople aside and say, hey, what are you doing? Well, I'm hanging board, or I'm pulling wire, or I'm running pipe. What are you doing? What are you doing here? What are you building? And a lot of them don't know.
Yeah.
And if that project doesn't mean any more to that average tradesperson on that site than building a warehouse or an Amazon distribution center or whatever, not that there's anything wrong with those, but if they knew what it was, it would have mattered more. So we think it's really important that to a lot of companies, even now today, most companies, they're struggling to find enough resources, tradespeople and professionals. But that younger generation, way younger than me, they care about what does that company care about. They want to be doing stuff with purpose. And that's, part of our mission statement is accomplishing projects with purpose. Those young people, they want to know that the stuff they're doing makes a difference and that the company they're working for cares about working on projects to make a difference. So we're going to help them do that.
I couldn't say it better myself. I'm literally writing a book about purpose. Everybody has a core purpose. Figure out that core purpose, then drive towards it every day. If you do that, you will be fulfilled. You will leave this world successful in whatever category you however you want to chalk that up of what success is or isn't. So that's amazing. So then what are maybe some of the misconceptions that nonprofits have about taking on a construction project like these?
Yeah. Well, the misconceptions are, of course, there's so many. Number one is most of them don't realize you'll spend $1 million before you're even out of the ground, and you can't point to any of it and say, "Oh, look where I spent that money." It's just now it's a lot of dirt. Now you have permission to go vertical, and so they don't realize how costly just site development is, and just getting to the point of starting to go vertical. Also, what they don't realize is just because I own that piece of dirt doesn't mean I can do what I want to do with it. There's planning and zoning and land use and permits and parking and stormwater management and floodplain and flood zone and are there caves? Sinkholes. It's all the stuff they don't think about. And number one rule: don't ever take free property. If somebody wants you to give you free land, caution. There's probably
Nothing's
a really
free.
good reason that they want to give it away. So again, all these things that they don't know to even ask. And the other big one, I said project delivery methods are a big passion. My second big passion is explaining. I tell nonprofits, I said, look, you think, here's your construction budget. I'm going to build this thing for this amount. What you don't realize is what you need is the project budget, which is this bigger circle. And all what's in between those is a whole long list of very unsexy things you're going to write checks for that you can't point to later and say, oh, wow, that's what I bought with that. But if you don't take that stuff into account, you're not building what you think you're going to be building. You're going to be out of money before you get there. And in the meantime, if you've already gone to some donors and told them some tall tale about how much this pretty picture will cost, only to find out it's going to cost twice as much and take twice as long, so trying to keep nonprofits out of that sort of uncomfortable position is really a big part of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I find nonprofits very fascinating because most of all the things that I do are in the for-profit sector. And when I think about it, you have the ability to sell a service or a product that allows you to create more revenue or generate more dollars that allows you to create other things. But a nonprofit difference is like generally, in a generality, you're just asking people for money to then go try to do things. Like essentially, it's almost like it's flipped. It's like, here, I have this service or this product. If you take it, you then give me money. And in comparison to nonprofit, it's like, hey, if you give me money, I will go do something with it.
Yeah. Right.
So
right.
What has been the challenge? And I know you've been part of other boards, but like, what's been the challenge of that compared to just running a for-profit business for years?
Well, before I get into that, the one thing to realize is every one of those nonprofits are built of a board of people in the community. Okay. Now, some legacy nonprofits maybe have a board of folks that aren't necessarily still in business, or they're not, financial whiz bangs or whatever. But you've got boards that look all kinds of different ways. But generally speaking, you've got a lot of business people making up these nonprofit boards. So they know how the business side of things works and what it takes, but there's a different language and there's a different, it's the fundraising that's so critical. And I would just say this, and I'm not naming names, obviously, but most nonprofits have struggled with their board governance in their makeup of their boards. There's a lot of people that want to serve on nonprofit boards because it just sounds cool to say I'm on this board. Well, guess what? If you're an executive director or trying to run a nonprofit organization, you desperately need every one of those board members in the game, and that means like in the game. Because what you need is you need them out in their circles of influence in the community, and they're carrying the flag for your organization. And most nonprofit board members are asked to give or get a certain dollar amount per year to keep the organization growing. But really the bigger influence is their circle of influence out in the business community and their families, that kind of thing. So, the tension is, well, how big of a board do I need? Ideally, in my opinion, 12 is a great number. We're at 9 now. We're trying to add one more we just added 2 more interns, but trying to get one more to get to 12. It was a great number for Jesus. So I think 12 is a good number. Don't need to get too big. It's too much to manage. But then the challenge of, structuring that board so that you don't get yourself in a problem when people roll off, because you're going to have term limits. You got to stagger the terms so you don't have quarter of your board disappearing.
Everybody swapping all at the same time.
1 month, that kind of thing. So there's a lot involved in that. But yeah, so
I helped a nonprofit out here in Arizona. Just with some structure things. I heard their story. I said, this is awesome. I just want to help out. I don't necessarily want to be a board member because I don't want to commit, to your point. I'm not all in. I think what you're doing is amazing, but like, it's not my thing. However, I want to help you do it better. Right. So I came and helped, and I'm like, I've never, it's not like I run a nonprofit, but like conceptually, you need structure. That's generally how business works. Life works that way. And it was like, what are the constraints that you have? Okay, let's work through those. And then coming to, which I would assume most nonprofits constraint is like, we don't have enough funding in some way, shape, or form. I don't know many nonprofits that are saying like, oh, please stop donating. We've hit our limits. We cannot possibly take on any more.
Deposit any more checks, right? You never hear.
Yes, we couldn't possibly do more. And then that was the thing, working through that problem and saying like, okay, well then how do you do this? Like, how do you then get those dollars in? And it was very, very just fun for me because it's like something so different, and it was their purpose. Like they loved it. Like this is their dream and their drive, and that makes me think of like we should be more active in general when looking for something that is purposeful. And that doesn't mean you have to be a nonprofit, but like doing things that are purposeful every day make a difference.
Well, and I challenge people to look for organizations, and I challenge people to find one that's a better ROI than ShareBuilt. But find an organization where you know that at a minimum, $1 you give goes to that whole dollar goes to who you're helping. Okay. In our case, and we're still gathering the final data on this, but we're very confident that $1 given to ShareBuilt turns into $10 of value for the clients that we serve. And that's not easy to do typically.
That's amazing.
So that is an immense ROI. The challenge we have is we're such a unicorn and we're so unique that everybody's like, yeah, right. I believe that when I say it. And it's very difficult to get the message across. So I think we've done a great job so far. We're getting ready to roll out a new marketing plan and a great push to really raise the engagement with the business community more this year. And I'm confident we're going to make a big difference this year. But what it is, anything that's, and I hate to say this is going to sound, I'm going to make this sound as positively negative as I can. When you're in the nonprofit space and you're doing something different and unique, you almost feel like you get penalized because you have to check the boxes and sort of play the game, quote unquote. So, if we apply for grants from foundations, whatever, we've got to be very selective because, a lot of grant making organizations, they say, oh, we only support a certain cause, and it's, homeless shelters or it's whatever. And those are all great, but they're just very narrow what they'll support. And we say, well, hey, we've got clients that are that way. Yeah, that's fine. But, we only support homeless shelters in this county. Okay, fine. So you got to be really creative to find those organizations that will entertain what you do. Generally for us, it might be organizations that would contemplate funding a capital campaign, which again, there's not many of those. So if somebody's trying to build a private school and they're trying to raise funds, there are foundations out there that will in part fund that. Well, they get instruction, so they will get us. So the other thing we're trying to do is partner with the nonprofits that we serve. If they're already seeking funding from grant sources, hey, we're partnered with ShareBuilt. That is evidence of the stewardship of the funds that are being entrusted to us. And so we're going to make sure that the funding that's being provided from your organization is going to be put to good use. And so that's a message that resonates. And so we look for those opportunities as well. And then really private companies. I mean, the AEC world is amazingly generous, but it's very fragmented. A lot of them just do their own thing. A lot of companies have their own foundations, private foundations, but so many just give out of operating income. I mean, like a lot out of operating income. So again, just finding those that resonate with what we're doing and want to, see their impact multiple.
Got it. You mentioned taking the story or, their identity and putting it within the design. How do you guys do that?
Yeah, so it's really helping them tell that story. I mean, one technique we use is we call it a trades awareness breakfast, for example. So we're a big fan of, let's say, construction management at risk, and I'm sure you're familiar, and some of your listeners are familiar with that delivery method. You want to be able to make those trades aware of the story of that nonprofit as early as possible. Hey guys, yeah, okay, it's February, but guess what? We know we have a GMP bid coming in May, okay? I want to make sure you've got this on your calendar if it really matters enough to you. And here's the story. They're going to hear from the nonprofit executive director, maybe the board chair. They're going to hear from the architect. They're going to hear from the construction manager. They're going to hear from us. We feed them a breakfast and just have them hear the story. And hey guys, I know you're busy and you got a lot of things you could be doing. And you probably think working for a nonprofit sounds like pain you don't care to inflict on yourself. But let me tell you, these are real people. They're stuff, and we're here to make sure that, this project runs as smoothly as any other one that you would otherwise be pursuing. And so make them a client of choice for those bidders who really, in this hyper crazy busy market that we've all been living in for the last 10 years, they got a lot of different things they could be doing. But if it's something that matters to them and they realize that it's going to be managed well, we make that an attractive option for them. So
yes, so you you bait them in with the breakfast burritos and pancakes, and then you hook them with the actual
breakfast is
cause.
always a great lead.
If somebody says to me, "Hey, I have a breakfast," I'm like, whatever it is, I'm in. I'm
This
all
is
like,
not the
okay,
roach coach
I'm there.
outside. This is not. That's not that. This is like, it's a real breakfast.
Real deal. That's awesome. So let's get some stories from some of the awesome projects that you've done.
Yeah.
You say like, hey, like
Yeah.
these are great examples of things that we've seen.
Well, I'll give you 3 quick ones. How about that? And they're
Cool.
all way
That
different.
works.
Okay. So one of the first ones was Power and Grace Preparatory Academy in Clarksville, Tennessee, just outside of Campbell. Okay. And it's a small Christian school, started about 10 years ago. Amazing lady named Catawba Stallworth actually sold her house to start the school. It's just a crazy story. When we started ShareBuilt, I went to our community foundation in Middle Tennessee and I said, because my board was saying, hey, can we just get a client? I mean, find somebody to help, got to start somewhere. I'm like, Bridge, don't worry. We're going to just get a client. So I go to Community Foundation, Middle Tennessee, and I'm like, I don't know anything about how this all works. I just happen to have a list of nonprofits that are like having a capital campaign or plan on doing something. Oh yeah, we'll send you the spreadsheet. Justin, they send me a spreadsheet of 170 nonprofits just in Middle Tennessee that had a capital campaign in some stage of, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm like, I can't send letters to all of them. So I handpicked about 20 that resonated, some private schools, some churches, different things. And then we're also sending some letters out to just my network of, hey, we're starting ShareBuilt, here's who we are, whatever. So we sent to 20 potential clients. Within a week, I hear from 7 of them. Okay. One of them is Mrs. Stallworth. And she tells a story. She's like, and she's one of these amazing women that don't tell her she can't do something. She's going to go figure it out, But she'd gone as far as she could go. She'd bought a new piece of property down the road. It had a house on it. But she says, praise the Lord. All right, Lord, I don't know what to do next. I'm just stuck. She says the next day she had one piece of mail. And it was the letter from me. And she opens this letter and looks at it, goes, seriously, are you kidding me? She puts it down, comes back the next day and she goes, oh, whatever. So she calls me. I go up to meet with her. One of her first comments to me is, do you know what I think of architects? No, I think they're all used car salesmen. Like, oh, really? Well, I'm going to find one that's going to change your mind on that. So the long story short is we helped her find an architect, do a master plan on that site. We helped her find a construction manager to help budget it. And so she's got the whole master plan, but she was still struggling with funding. It's like, how do we build this? We need more space so we can have more kids, so we can raise our revenue. But it's this chicken and egg thing. Right down the road at Fort Campbell on the military base, one of her families was aware that there was a building at Fort Campbell they were getting ready to demolish. And it was a permanent modular classroom, 9,000 square feet, was only 3 years old. Bulletproof glass, the whole thing. They were going to demolish it. We said, time out.
Yeah,
so
what?
We worked with her and this person to figure out how to get that donated. Not an easy task from the federal government, as you can imagine. And then get it relocated 9 miles to the site and set up. So they got a 9,000 square foot, virtually brand new building for $150,000. So unbelievable story. So that's really got them propelled. So now they can raise their revenue because they serve more kids. So that's awesome story number 1.
That's amazing.
Number 2 was the Refuge Center for Counseling, which is a Christian counseling center here in Franklin, Tennessee. And they've been planning this building for like 4 or 5 years. Originally started with an aspirational budget of $4.5 million, ended up at a budget of $11 million because it's a complicated site. And of course their needs grew and everything else. They had already had a construction manager, architect, whatever. They had already broken ground, and we got introduced by a mutual acquaintance and said, hey, you need to talk to Amy Alexander, who's the executive director. So within 2 days, we're on the phone, and they'd already broken ground, but they didn't have anybody to be their owner's rep, and they didn't have budget for it. So I committed to personally being we call them project shepherds. Our owner's reps are project shepherds. I said, look, I will do that, but realize I'm building an organization. I may have to step out at some point, and I'll turn it over to somebody else. I was able to take it all through the end. It's an amazing, iconic building. We've got pictures of it on our website. So that was a great result. That's to date still the biggest project we managed. It was a $12 million project. And then the third one, and this is where we get a lot of our, we've not looked for a project since 2023 in July when I sent those letters out I talked about. But one of the supporting general contractors that knows about us, they have an office up in Detroit, and I get a call from a business development guy from their office. I didn't even know they had a Detroit office. And he's, hey, we got this RFP from this local nonprofit for construction management services, and I don't think they know what they're doing or what they're asking for. Can I introduce you? And this is pretty common, it's like help us help them kind of thing. Introduces us. It's called Guiding Harbor. They are a nonprofit that serves foster kids. They manage like 50 different kids and families, plus they have like a campus where the kids live as well, and they have an independent living. They had 2 properties they owned, one that they leased, and they wanted to get rid of the leased property and build something next to a current building. So I pull it up as I'm on the phone with them on Zoom, and I'm like, wait a minute, are you on a lake? I mean, is this like lakefront property? Oh, yeah. I'm like, well, what's this property worth? I mean, is this where you want to build? Yeah, that's what we're thinking. So how about we find out what it's worth first? Because I think you could do way better going somewhere else. And so, long story short, we helped them hire a realtor. We helped them hire an appraiser, helped them hire the architect. And now we're in the master plan programming phase with them now. And we're going to be bringing a construction manager on to help them look at what would a unified campus look like? How much land do you need for that? And then start talking to municipalities around there and other property owners to see they might be able to get some free land from somebody to do that and sell their 2 properties to finance the construction. So stuff like that was never on their radar screen. They don't realize what a great story they have and how some public-private partnerships can work. So anyway, so being involved early enough to make those kind of impacts is what we love to do.
That's so impactful because it's as you and your team look through it, there's obvious things that you're seeing, but this is not the thing they do.
Not what they do.
They're not building things. That's like we're trying to run a nonprofit. So that's so cool to connect the dots. And then I assume you have lots of either GCs or architects that get an RFP that say like, ShareBuilt is what you need.
Yeah, and most of them realize, look, this is going to go a lot better for everybody if the owner can make the proper decisions they need to make when they need to make it. So it's really helping the owner help them.
No, for sure. So then what advice would you give a nonprofit that's looking to take on a project like this?
Well, the first thing is it's never too early to engage some help. And again, we don't send our nonprofits a bill. I mean, that people think I'm out of my mind, but I just feel like we're led to serve those who are serving, and we'll trust the business community, individual supporters, and our clients for the support we need to do it. And so anyway, so there's no cost to getting advice early. And I've lost track of how many 1-hour phone calls I've had just with an interested nonprofit and maybe a board chair, and an executive director, and telling me where they're at, and I've been on a number of calls with some of them, and it's really kind of sad, Justin. They're saying, oh, we've made so many mistakes. We've made so many mistakes. And they're beating themselves up.
Yeah.
Where you could just reach out and get some support early. So I really tell them the number one piece of advice I tell everybody is don't show a pretty picture to anybody what you think you can do. And definitely don't put a number on it that you don't know is really true, because they'll never forget the picture and they'll never forget the number, so that's job one. Really, it's a lot of them don't understand just even the terminology, like what does programming mean? Well, it's like, how many rooms of what size and what purpose do you need to do what? You may have enough space to do that. You're just not using your space effectively. So they may think they need to build 10,000 square feet. They may not need to build at all, or maybe only build 5, if they could better use what they've got. So a lot of them don't even know a lot of that. So,
that's interesting. So that brings up a whole other, like, we might not even be building something else. We might be just, and maybe there's a renovation of some sort in your current building, but like we're just changing how something's laid out, where this room actually isn't utilized and you could actually extend it this way. And then that becomes the size of room at which you need for this particular program that you want to run.
Yeah.
So,
or even if we want to build, we may not need to buy land to build. You could do a ground lease long-term. There's so many things you could do. So I think there's a lot of options, and just a lot of them. It depends on the sophistication of their board and how large the board is, whether they even have anybody that is maybe speaking to some of these things.
Sure. So obviously knowing about you, that's got to be just, people need to know about you. That's step step one. If you don't know about me, hard for me to help you. The other piece there is you obviously you're working with these boards of these nonprofits. How does that go? Not that I'm not putting anybody in a box of different stylistically how they operate, but they could be ego driven. There could be some components to that you're having to deal with. What does that look like?
Generally, it goes very well, but early on, you've typically got a board chair. You might have a property committee chair or something like that they all want to, like, well, this thing sounds like way too good to be true. I need to meet this guy, and so you go through that whole thing and they get it. And they're like, well, this is amazing. I mean, I've never heard of anybody doing this. We're like, well, neither did I. That's why we started this, And so
there wasn't until
going
4 years
that,
ago, nobody was doing this.
Lord, I don't believe, help my unbelief. It's like, this is really true. So it's just having those conversations, and most of them, they want their organization to succeed. They just do. And a lot of them, to your point though, they could have already gone some down the road and realized, oh, man, we made some mistakes. I wish we hadn't have done that. And, I just tell them all, look, everything's recoverable. I mean, it's just, there's very few things that you can't fix. The earliest thing I tell them is, send me everything that you've signed, and hopefully it's not much, and then any correspondence you've had with potential other consultants or contractors, and don't sign anything else until we have a conversation, and we're able to go through it together. But the beauty of this is, we ask our nonprofit clients to sign a simple, it's like a 3-page agreement, Justin. You know what? It addresses 3 basic things. Hey, you're going to sign a written contract with an architect. Believe it or not, that's kind of revolutionary to some people that have to have a written contract with our. Hit that, number one.
Having a contract
same thing with the
designer?
contractor.
What?
Same thing with the contractor. Both of those agreements need to address payment terms, project safety, and insurance. Basic blocking and tackling for us in our business, but a lot of nonprofits don't know this stuff. But then I also ask them that, hey, we as ShareBuilt will get an audience with your board to explain what we do, why we do it, how we do it, and how, donation on your part would help us pay it for, and help you pay it forward to help others, So that's our chance to get an audience with a broader cross section of the business community, and that's how the word just spreads.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then, obviously Tennessee, that's pretty obvious. You said Detroit as well.
Yeah.
Where else in the country have you been?
Yeah. Got a school in Jacksonville, Florida we're working on. Got a very large potential project in Orlando that we're in early discussions on. Got a disabled housing program outside of Memphis. Got a small church south of Chicago. So, and I've talked to people as far as Colorado and up to New England. So it's the word is spreading. But here's the thing: this isn't anything unique to Nashville. I mean, this is just where I happen to live, and there's a high concentration of nonprofits here. But this is a model that, I mean, every market in the country could benefit from. I mean, so if I could dream really big, and the board's kind of asked me, and I hate to really say this stuff, but they're like, well, what could I'll be in 5 years? Well, honestly, with our brand, I just think we're blessed with. We're all familiar with LEED accreditation, right? And all that arms race of that we went through for the last 20 years. Oh, how many LEED accredited professionals do you have? Oh, I've got 20. I've got 25. I mean, okay, does that really matter? Okay, what if we could get to some point where you'd say, hey, has your project been ShareBuilt? If you're a nonprofit project, have you been ShareBuilt? And have you been intentional about really engaging the broader design and construction community where you live in that project? So I think it's got the potential of sort of having a ShareBuilt seal of approval, if you want to think about that at some point. And that would be really cool if that would ever happen. And maybe we get an area director in a couple dozen cities around the country. So that'd be
That's
neat.
Awesome. I'm excited to see the growth of this. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, you can go to our website. It's ShareBuilt, one word, ShareBuilt.org. All kinds of contact information on there for me, and my email address is steve.kuhn, Kuhn, at ShareBuilt.org. And I rarely turn down a conversation or a meeting. So I figure I learned something in every one of these meetings, and I love meeting new people and hearing their story and seeing if we can help.
Cool. I will throw all that in the show notes. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the people before we say goodbye?
Follow us on LinkedIn. I'm mostly a LinkedIn guy. I've been told we have a Facebook page, but I told them if you count on me to do anything with it, it's probably not going to happen. So rumor is we have a Facebook page. but I'm a LinkedIn guy, so follow ShareBuilt on LinkedIn and repost or comment on anything you see, and that'd be a huge help to us, especially for those who are in the AEC space. So, and if you need somebody to speak at a lunch and learn virtually or in person, I'd love to do that.
Awesome. This has been a ton of fun. And I'm also a giant LinkedIn person as well, which is how we met. So
Yeah.
Look at that. It's fun. Like I said, I had a great time. I hope you did as well, Steve. And I hope the listeners also had a good time.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate the time.
Right. Adios.
Thanks for listening to Building Scale. To help us reach even more people, please share this episode with a friend, a colleague, or on social media.
Remember, the 3 pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology.
And our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy.
So if you think your company's technology pillar could use some improvement, book a call with us to see how we can help maximize your IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
And until next time,
Keep building scale.
scale.